Hey y'all, Briston here from Lucky Dragon Collectibles, and today I'm at my card shop or game shop here where I'm going to be testing out the Dragapult EX League Battle Deck and seeing whether or not I can actually win in an actual tournament with just straight out of the box a League Battle Deck. Now before I begin, I'd like to kindly ask you all to please make sure to like and share this video and subscribe to my channel. I am a growing content creator and I greatly appreciate any and all help I can receive. Also make sure to check out my Pokemon online shop at luckydragon-collectibles.com. And lastly, if you haven't already entered my promo giveaway, check the link in the description box down below and make sure to enter yourself into the promo giveaway. Watch the video in its instructions, follow it to the T, and then that way you'll get yourself a way to get a chance to enter and win some promo cards. Anyways, let's go ahead and check out what we have in store for you. So at my local tournament, it was a best of 3 rounds with a total of 3 matches. My challenge at this tournament was exactly as I had stated, taking on the tournament with a straight out of the box Dragapult EX League Battle Deck. No modifications whatsoever other than sleeving up my deck. Of my matches, I tied in my very first match, I won my second match, and I lost on my third and final match. I ultimately did not make it up to the top 3. But what happened? Let me break down the 3 matches and give you my final assessment of this League Battle Deck. My first matchup was against my friend Drew, who was also using another Dragapult EX deck. In his own words, it was a mirror matchup, but not quite. You see, both of our decks are somewhat evened out as we were mid-speed and both of us lacked Crispin's supporters, or at least he didn't get his that I had seen. But Drew was running with Lily's Clefairy EX and Azumarils to destroy dragons like Dragapult EX. So he had some heavy hitters that were a direct counter even if he didn't have his Dragapult EX, and it was an absolute threat to my deck. But we were both facing issues with energy and maneuvering. I was able to keep the positioning and maneuver advantage over his Bidoo's item lock by using the deck's Tatsugiri to pull a boss's orders to move his Bidoo to the bench, and then later I also pulled up with that same Tatsugiri and Arvin, which then let me get a counter catcher. I was able to catch a Pokemon like his Lily's Clefairy for an advantageous hit with my Dragapult EX. Xatu was very helpful here in helping me getting those extra energies into play and then allowing me to draw more along with my recon directives. From there, it was just pot-shotting the rest of his Pokemon, and that sealed my first round for the win. Second one, it didn't go so well for me. Drew was able to get his setup much faster than I could, and he just countered up my entire bench until he took the win. So it was basically the opposite of what just happened for my first match. And then we were timed for the third round, and we ended up just drawing. But that first round, it was a real good feel for the deck in a real live match. I got a chance to play around with the Xatu and Tatsugiri to really help draw what I needed to give me a strategic maneuvering even when I was lacking energies. But my second round played in the worst possible way. Everything was stacked against my hand and my opponent had the advantage with a solid start. But I feel like that's a given with many decks that start with a bad start. Sometimes you can't recover no matter what you do. My second matchup was against my other friend here, Isaiah, with a fun deck, a Land Collapse with Grey Tusk being front and center. His deck focused on milling my deck with no attempts to win any prizes whatsoever. I didn't realize his strategy until midway through the fight of the first round, and that made my counter captures absolutely useless against him. Fortunately for me in both rounds, Isaiah was not able to pull off enough Sawdust Vitality to continuously make me mill into extinction. And that's saying that the first round, a couple of his Sawdust were actually in the prizes. Another crippling factor for Isaiah is that he does have a neutralizing zone stadium to help him stall for the end in order to win. However, I lucked out and I never encountered it and he never drew it. He also told me he ran a Cornerstone Ogerpon, but he didn't even bother pulling it out because he knew it was absolutely useless against me and he needed more time rather than giving me more prizes for the win. In both rounds, once I was able to get one Dragapult EX into play, it was just basically playing the one prize per turn until I finally won the actual round. And this happened for both rounds, which led me to my win overall for this matchup. Honestly, I was a bit surprised this deck succeeded in the fight. In the first round, I didn't realize until halfway through that Isaiah's intent was to mill me to his victory. So then by that point, I had realized I had to be very and extremely careful when using Xatu's ability alongside with Recon Directive to draw cards. But after realizing my path to victory was just needing to get to my main hitter Dragapult EX, I just had to play cautiously just as soon as I can get him out, and then I can start swinging. I think I really lucked out in both rounds as he had the means and way to stall me to his victory, but he didn't either have it in his deck or was able to draw it in time. My final matchup was against another friend of mine and a fellow startup Pokemon content creator, Wyatt, with his Hopsation deck, or I like to consider a revised Archiludun EX deck. Now, if you're not familiar with this meta deck, it focuses on Hop's Pokemon and items that synergize with each other to do damage amplification, like Hop's Snorlax, Hop's Choice Band, and Postwig. Then drawing out Hopsation to do an incredible first turn poke of 120 damage for a near wipe on most basic Pokemon and 30 damage to the bench. And if the player does not succeed with the beginning poke, then it's a little bit of a switch up to utilize Hop's Cramorant or the Archiludun EX for heavy hitting. This deck is what I like to call a Yoshi deck, a la a Mario Kart reference. It has an incredibly high acceleration at the beginning, but mid to bad top speed. Knowing this information about the Hops deck here, the first round I did a very surprising thing. I actually had to rely on Fizzipity EX. That's right. And consider that I understand that the deck, or the Hops deck, is weakness is basically energy related. I did what I did against my first matchup against Drew's Dragapult EX deck. I ended up bossing up his Hops Snorlax, which had a really high retreat cost, and actually energized Fizz to use his attack to attack his bench. I then drew out the match until I drew exactly what I needed to set up my Dragapult EX, and that was pretty much game. Now, I wish I could say the same thing for the last two rounds, though. The second round went exactly what plays out with a Hopsation deck. Wyatt got his setup on his first turn, or rather in this case he was going second, and then he just kept on getting knock after knock each turn, and I was not able to set up at all, and he took the win. The third and final round was just as sad on my end. Wyatt got his perfect setup on turn 2, I had no other way to maneuver or stall out, and he took the final win. This could have gone in different directions, but ultimately, Hopsation has a much more of a speed advantage over a Dragapult EX, especially when it comes to striking first. If a Dragapult EX deck can't get its setup or if its defense going in the next few turns, it's absolutely toast if the opponent's deck is faster. Again, it's why I talked a bit about Hopsation's deck in the beginning. It excels at first turn poking and destabilizing your opponent's setup if they have smaller basic Pokemon. My only chance was that if he did not get his setup like what had happened in the first round. But round 2 and 3, it was more advantageous for him for his setup, and then again with that final, it was just simple. There was no surviving that. When the tournament concluded, I was disappointed in the deck at first. One win, one loss, one tie. It was not what I was expecting at all. To be honest, I was really hoping that I was going to crush it or get crushed. I know, it's pretty much extremes on both different ends. But after taking some time and looking back at all the footage, reanalyzing the game, and then remembering my plays as well, the Dragapult EX League Battle deck was more well played and performed better than I thought. Let me break it down exactly. In the mirror matchup, it was literally that, a matchup and a rightful tie. Both Drew and I are solid players, and we knew our deck's abilities to strategize to appropriately draw and maneuver. We just can't account for the unaccountable, the variables of the decks, and the nature of the random setup and draw. And with his being a Dragon Destroyer, and mine more heavy on drawing, it was more of a matchup more closer to chess, just trying to make the right play so we can checkmate each other. Isaiah's Land Collapse deck was, in his own words, a meme deck for the lulz. It was a fun and kooky deck, but even for the lulz, it had the potential to win. He just didn't have the luck of the draw, and he was getting prized in the very first round, so that didn't do him any favors. As for me, the Dragapult EX deck played out as intended, so why should I be disappointed in that? The final match with Wyatt's Hopsation deck shouldn't have disappointed me at all. It was a battle for his quick set versus my medium speed. I just lucked out in the first round where he didn't draw what he needed, and I maneuvered him to just get stuck, just to buy me time so I can set up the win. But the latter two rounds, he got exactly what he needed to succeed. A solid setup and preventing me from setting up, and even a one-turn poke on the final round. Exactly how his deck was built, and a definite weakness of the Dragapult EX deck, which is needing time to set up. The outcome of this fight was expected, and I shouldn't be disappointed in that at all. After looking over everything, the Dragapult EX League Battle deck played as it was supposed to, a medium speed deck that requires time to set up, but gives the player a lot of advantageous strategies provided they know what cards they have in the deck at the time of play and knowing what deck they are fighting against to use the appropriate approach against those decks. Straight out of the box, the deck did what it was supposed to do, and it definitely needed a little bit more tweaking. I still stand by on what I said on my first part episode on the type of cards I would replace in this deck and utilize, as it would help optimize this deck's speed and having more direct options and strategies. But the more important question is, would I recommend this deck? In short, yes. If you have no deck and need to play with one at a tournament, and this was literally sitting on the shelf by itself, begging to be bought, what are you waiting for? Pick up a copy, sleeve it up, and go to town with everybody at the tournament. This is a solid deck when you're needing one. But know that this deck is not like previous League Battle decks in terms of simplicity to use. This is a highly skilled deck that requires you to have the patience with setup and strategic understanding of how to utilize each card in the deck in order to succeed. And not so much as knowing the other decks you're up against, but know your own weakness. Decks that focus on speed and setup disruption is your Achilles heel. May not win all your fights, but you'll have a great opportunity to have a competitive chance in the current meta if you play your cards right. And that's all I have for you in this video today. If you haven't already, I'd like to kindly ask you again to please like this video, subscribe to my channel, check out my online shop at luckydragon-collectibles.com, and enter my promo giveaway, link in the description box down below. Thank you again for watching, and until the next video, take care and may you be lucky with your pulls today.